Beijing blasts lawmakers of the opposition camp over the lack of progress in the House Committee's work. 5 new cases of COVID-19 in Hong Kong.
Good evening, everyone. Beijing is accusing lawmakers from the non-establishment camp of obstructing the election of the House Committee chairman. In a question and answer article posted online, the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office says their behavior may constitute the offense of misconduct in public office. Caleb Leung explains.
It appears that Beijing's patience is wearing thin with how the Legislative Council is operating. Since the current legislative session began in October, the House Committee has yet to elect a chairman after 14 meetings. Today, the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office posted a question and answer article on its website. The article criticized Dennis Kwok, who presides over the election of the House Committee chairman. It says Kwok, as well as some other lawmakers from the opposition camp, abused their powers and used procedural issues for filibustering. This, according to the article, has severely affected LegCo's normal operations and obstructed a huge amount of legislation work related to issues such as the economy, people's livelihood, and social development. With the epidemic still in a difficult phase, the article says lawmakers should focus on the big picture and work with the government to overcome the difficulties. It accuses some opposition lawmakers of disregarding public interest while trying to make political gains and adopting despicable measures to sabotage the legislature's operations. It says their behavior is no different from a political mutual destruction, and these lawmakers may have violated their oath of office. The Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office says this may constitute the offense of misconduct in public office and should be severely condemned. Beijing's liaison office in Hong Kong also issued an article on its own website to slam Dennis Kwok and other opposition lawmakers. The article says these lawmakers have violated their oath of office through malicious filibustering, and they have disregarded Hong Kong's overall interests as well as people's livelihood. In response, Dennis Kwok said how LegCo and its committees operate should be handled by lawmakers in accordance with the Basic Law, as well as existing rules and procedures. It's beyond the powers and rights of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, as well as Beijing's liaison office, to influence or comment on LegCo's operations or how lawmakers do their jobs. On a separate note, the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office issued a separate article over a recent ruling of the Court of Appeal on the anti-mask law. The office supports the court ruling, asking the Western media not to make reckless comments. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
5 new cases of COVID-19 were reported today, bringing these cities' total to 1,009. Test results also show a drug treatment for Ebola has mitigated the conditions of nearly 70% of coronavirus patients who took it. Kaina Chu reports.
A history of travel has once again become a commonality shared among the majority of the city's latest coronavirus cases. The youngest of them is a 14-month-old infant who traveled to the UK with her family. Her domestic helper was previously diagnosed, albeit asymptomatic. In another imported case from the UK, a man who already felt sick before arriving in the SAR. On the other end of the age spectrum is a 79-year-old man who returned from Indonesia with an infected wife. That's on top of a 72-year-old woman who went on a cruise trip in Paraguay. Those cases, however, may just be the tip of the iceberg.
So there will be some travelers to transit from other places who would not be home and tested in the past few days. For those who are not tested in the AWE, we have distributed the modules to them.
The only case without any travel history is a man in his 60s. Prior to his diagnosis, he was put in a quarantine center for being a close contact of his infected son. As the world continues its race to search for a vaccine, a medicine originally developed as an Ebola treatment may now be considered as a possible short-term solution. That as 68% of 53 COVID-19 patients provided with remdesivir on a compassionate use basis have displayed improved conditions, according to a statement by Gilead Sciences, which developed the drug. The patients who were observed over an 18-day period after drugs were taken are from the US, Europe, Canada, and Japan. The majority of them are aged over 60 with underlying conditions such as diabetes and high blood pressure. While nearly half of the patient cohort was discharged, 7 still died. Kana Chu, TVB News.
Starting today, all returnees from the U.S. and Europe have to undergo coronavirus tests and wait for the results at Asia World Expo after landing. New arrivals will be given tracking bracelets before being ushered to Asia World Expo's Specimen Collection Center for tests. It takes between 7 and 9 hours for results from their deep throat saliva tests. Those who test positive will be sent to hospital right away. Others receiving a negative result will serve a 14-day mandatory quarantine at home or at designated locations. But some travelers cited a lack of prior notice about the new arrangements.
The new quarantine requiring testing at Airport Express and staying here at Asia Expo until the test results were finished were never communicated to anyone on the flight before boarding. Everyone is appreciative of the government trying to control the virus. What is not appreciated by myself and 320 other passengers is the lack of information.
The last day of the Easter holiday saw beaches and streets packed with crowds. For that, the government warned people about the possibility of a new wave of coronavirus infections taking place in a week or two. To facilitate the city's virus containment measures, festivities in Yunlong and Sai-Kung celebrating Tin Hao's birthday on Wednesday will be scrapped. That's according to a social media post of the police force, which also reminds the public of the government's new rule limiting public gatherings to no more than 4 people. Still ahead on tonight's news, local food trucks hard hit by the coronavirus epidemic.
Hong Kong's food truck operators have suspended operations due to the coronavirus outbreak, and they are calling on the government for help. Dong Yao Nie has more.
A familiar jingle rings out in Sai-Kung. But Mr. Lee, the operator of this ice cream truck, has seen a dip of customers due to the coronavirus scare. He says few people are willing to take off their masks and eat on the streets. While an ice cream truck can go anywhere the owner wants, food trucks are only allowed to operate in locations designated by the government. But now they are nowhere to be seen, even in popular places like the Space Museum in Tsim Sha Tsui or Golden Bohemia Square. The government launched the food truck pilot scheme 3 years ago in an attempt to boost tourism. Among the 15 food trucks citywide, 2 have quit and the others have suspended operations due to the coronavirus pandemic. Mr. Chung has invested $4 million on 3 food trucks, and so far his business has yet to break even. His trucks have been stationed at a car park in Hung Shui Kiu since February. There are no people at the places where the government told us to set up. Of course, it's terrible to see them just sitting here, he said. Although authorities have included new sites, including near the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. Industry representatives said there are no tourists because of current border restrictions. The union has called for the government to loosen policies and allow food trucks to operate in residential areas. Dong Yao Nie, TVB News.
About a dozen people today mourned the death of a street cleaner who was fatally hit by a brick exactly 5 months ago. They paid tribute at the site of the incident in Shengshui. Last November, clashes broke out between anti-government protesters and their opponents outside North District Town Hall. As a bystander, the 70-year-old government contracted cleaner recorded the skirmishes on his mobile phone. He was hit in the head by a brick and died in hospital the next day. Police listed the case as murder. That is our time for the news.
Thanks for watching. Good night.